Hey everyone, this is a very short piece titled A Tribute to Ryan Worrall, 1903 to 1995. I'm not sure who wrote this, but it is from the journal Revolutionary History, Volume 6, number 2 of 3. The reason I'm reading this is because in Marcel van der Linden's Western Marxism in the Soviet Union, Ryan Worrall is featured as one of the first people within the Trotskyist milieu to come to a state capitalist thesis of the USSR in juxtaposition to Trotsky's well-known degenerated worker state thesis. He wasn't the first person to have a state capitalist thesis for sure, but for my research purposes, I'm investigating critical theories of the USSR that within the Trotskyist movement that broke with Trotsky on the question of the nature of the Soviet system. So this is an important figure for me personally to study. So here we go. Ryan Lyndal Worrall, who died on the 12th of December last year, I'm not sure which year, I guess this is written in 1996 then, was a doctor and philosopher of science who made an important contribution to the formation of the Trotskyist movement in Britain. Even though he was always a very independent-minded individual, a, quote, free spirit, end quote, who did not fit easily into the apparatus of any party. Worrall was born in Australia on the 7th of April 1903 and went to Russia through the good offices of the Quaker Maud and Dorothy Paget, or Paget, as the correspondent of the daily paper of the Australian Labour Party, visiting Leningrad, Moscow, Nizhni Novgorod, Samara, and a nearby village called Toske, or Toske. He left the USSR for Britain in 1927, joining in succession the Labour Party, the Independent Labour Party, and the Communist Party, where he became the secretary of the Portsmouth branch, which sent him as a delegate to the party's 10th Bermondsey Congress in January 1929. Worrall was so influenced by the, quote, third period, end quote, line adopted there that he began to advocate armed struggle both in Britain and Germany, was suspected of being a police spy, and was expelled for, quote, political unreliability, end quote. A subsequent visit to Germany while Hitler was rising to power convinced Worrall of the total futility of, quote, third period, end quote, politics, and Worrall joined the Marxian League of Hugo Dewar and F.A. Ridley, who retained his friendship and admiration for the rest of his life. When the Marxian League broke up, he joined the Communist League led by Henry Serra, Reg Groves, and Harry Wicks. Those attempts to rejoin the Communist Party to assist their work inside it were thwarted by the apparatus. If you don't know who Henry Serra, Reg Groves, and Harry Wicks are, they're like the initiators of British Trotskyism. Worrall was a close friend of the Japanese Trotskyist literary translator Aichi Yamanishi, whose intellectual duels with Hartmann, a founder of the American Socialist Workers' Party, whose wife was a code breaker in the American Embassy in London, so enlivened the group's internal affairs. When the Communist League split in December 1933, Worrall supported the faction led by Denzil Harbour, Stuart Kirby, and Margaret Johns, advocating entry into the Independent Labour Party. But Worrall did not remain there for very long, for he did not get along with Denzil Harbour, whom Worrall regarded as dogmatic and didactic, and was expelled from the Central London group after replying to one of Harbour's acidic remarks by throwing a punch at him. Worrall was the first amongst the British Trotskyists to take up a state capitalist position on Russia, which he argued in his USSR, Proletarian or Capitalist State, Socialist Review, November-December 1939, Left number 39, December 1939, page 319 to 25, and The Modern Quarterly, Winter 1939, pages 2 to 9. This caused sufficient stir at the time to attract the attention of Rudolf Hilferding, who'd answered it in one of his last articles, State Capitalism or Totalitarian State Economy, reproduced in C. Wright Mills, The Marxist, New York, 1962. 1 second. I gotta write that down. Awesome. During the Second World War, Worrall served as medical officer of health for Brighton, where he was fined and dismissed from his post under defense regulations for putting out a leaflet objecting to the suicidal policy of sending evacuee children, quote, to the front line, end quote. He had to be reinstated after a German bomb killed several of the children there during a cinema matinee. That's from Ray Challinor, The Struggle for Hearts and Minds, Essays on the Second World War. After the war, Worrall dropped out of politics and devoted himself to scientific thought and research. Some of the above details of his career were gleaned from Sam Bornstein and Al Richardson, Against the Stream, London, 1986. Supplemented by interviews with Dr. Worrall by Al Richardson on the 26th of November, 1978, and by Walter Kendall and Ted Crawford on the 25th of October, 1995. Worrall traveled a good deal in the years before the war, visiting the USA a couple of times and staying with Scott Nearing in New Jersey. Worrall supported himself by working as a locum for 3 or 4 months a year, and along with some money from Australia, this enabled him to devote his time to writing his books on politics, science, and dialectics. These included The Outlook of Science, published in 1933, Footsteps of Warfare, 1936, Energy and Matter, 1948. They were highly thought of and well reviewed in the left press, and were even commended by Einstein. Worrall was particularly interested in the relationship between dialectics and the methodology of scientific understanding, and entered into correspondence with Trotsky, who was preoccupied with this question at that time. We are greatly indebted to the Workers' Revolutionary Party for allowing us to reproduce the following letters from Trotsky to Worrall from their archives. This is from July 1933. Dear Comrade Worrall, I was absolutely sure until yesterday that I had already sent you a letter about your book, but Comrade Shachtman declares that this is not the case, and in fact no copy of a letter can be found. I leave aside the puzzle unsolved, and I express to you my best thanks for having sent me the book. It is absolutely magnificent that an English comrade should have published a book on dialectical materialism, not in order to crush it, but in order to defend it against all foes. I read 2 chapters with great interest. Now the book is being read by Shachtman, and I shall continue my reading of it later on. Can you find it possible to send me some information about yourself, and especially your attitude toward the left opposition in general, and toward the English group in particular? Your warm sympathies for the opposition, Comrade Shachtman has already told me about. Fraternally yours, Leon Trotsky. This is from, the next letter is from the 27th of May, 1936. Dear Comrade, this is to introduce Kjell Ottesen, a member of the Norwegian Workers' Party who goes to England in order to work as a journalist. Ottesen does not belong to our tendency, but is a very good comrade who deserves full confidence. I beg you to give him your kind support for his journalistic job. Fraternally, Leon Trotsky. P.S. I beg your pardon not to have answered your 2 letters and hope to have acknowledged receipt of your book you were so kind to send me. But presently I am very much occupied by my work. I hope to be able to write you more in detail the next time. The end.